Good afternoon for those tuning in the United States. It's evening here in Jerusalem. So like many of you, ever since October 7th, life changed for us. That's all we could think about. Every minute we wanted to know what's happening in the news, what was the latest from Israel. And we felt something changed. There was a sense of unity amongst Jewish communities, amongst fellow Jews, like I've never seen and never felt. And as I mentioned at last week's class, the way it was described to me how the Jewish community felt during the Six-Day War is perhaps the closest as to how we felt from October the 7th. There was a desire for everyone to do something. We wanted to be a part. Jacob, there's notes here of people saying, is the audio working? So I just want to do a check. Those listening on Zoom, is the audio working? If someone can give me a thumbs up. I'm not seeing any thumbs up. So Jacob, yeah, now I am. Okay, I guess the audio is working. And in Agora, Jacob, everything's fine there? You're hearing me?
Yes, everything is good over here.
Okay. People were coming into the Chabad house at all times. They wanted to put on tefillin. And when women wanted to know more about Shabbos candle lighting, you saw we called for a rally and hundreds of people showed up within a few hours. There was this sense that the Jewish community was coming together, united very much. And I just felt I had this inner desire that I wanted to travel to Israel and let the community here know. I let the people of Israel know, let the Chayalim, the soldiers, know that we're behind them, that we're with them, that they're not alone. And yeah, we could write them emails, we can phone call them, but I wanted it to be personal. And so when I was asked to be part of this solidarity mission to travel to Israel, I immediately accepted, even though we're all very busy with our lives and we all have a lot that we have to do. I just felt it was critical, a very critical time in Jewish history, that the sense that I was feeling was given over in a very personal way. A message of unity, a message of love, a message of compassion, and perhaps most important of all, a message of resolve, resolute, strength, courage. We're with you. We wanted to spend time comforting the bereaved, visiting the homes of those sitting Shiva or those that had just gotten up from sitting Shiva. We wanted to visit the wounded in the hospitals. We wanted to visit with families whose loved ones have been taken hostage. We wanted to visit with government ministers, and we wanted to visit with army bases, with our young men and women of Tzahal. And in the short time that we were here, we did all of the above. And we gave over to each of these groups the feelings that I mentioned to you. But something drastically changed within each and every single one of us. And I just came from a meeting of those of us, 30 rabbis that went, and we are each dealing with the same emotional confusion, I would say. How to deal with our own emotions after having gone through what we went through. Because perhaps now more than how we wanted to affect them, they affected us. We are changed people. So I'm going to share with you some thoughts, perhaps bouncing from one subject to the next, just to give you a sense of the emotions that I have felt and are feeling and the thought process. Not in any type of prepared, typed out way, just raw emotion, having seen what I have seen, having met whom I have met, having encountered what I have encountered. Let's go to October 7th. By now, we have all read, we have all heard. Some have been brave enough to see the pictures of what took place. To say it was a terrorist attack is an understatement. Every terrorist attack is bad. Every terrorist attack is evil. But these atrocities that took place can be compared to nothing else than Nazism. That level of evil, that the word evil does not do justice to it. And when we say they behave like animals, you are putting down the animal. Animals are not as cruel. The atrocities, the evil of October 7th is something each and every single Jew will have to come to terms with. Over 1,000 terrorists broke through the border. Some by truck, they bulldozed down the wall. Some came in over the border with truck. Some with hand glides. Some with motorcycles. Know that this was a well-planned attack. It wasn't a sudden thought. It wasn't something of a week or a month of planning. It was years in the planning with very, very specific details. They knew the roads that led to the kibbutzim. They knew the cameras that were at the border. They knew exactly where the security were. They knew where the radars were. They had different teams taking on different parts of Israel's security. They had it all planned exactly where they were going to go and who was going to go. They knew every building in every kibbutz. If you're familiar with the kibbutzim, in the kibbutz, there's a place where all the children stay together. They knew those houses as well. They knew the day on the calendar. They knew a Shabbat, and they knew Simchas Torah. Now, what that does, Simchas Torah Shabbat, means that many regular soldiers would have put in their request to be home. This would be after Rosh Hashanah, after Yom Kippur, after Sukkot, perhaps asking for that day off so that they can celebrate Simchat Torah with their family. And the army, having no clue what was ahead for them, may have given out these passes, and there may have been less security than there would have been on a regular Monday or regular Tuesday. Now, that investigation for Israel will eventually take place. The breakdown in intelligence, the breakdown in security, the breakdown in the border, we all have those questions. But there's plenty of time for the rest of our lives to deal with those questions, not for now. The first to get attacked were the kibbutzim near the Gaza, literally right across Gaza are some of the original kibbutzim of Eretz Yisrael. And early on in their attack were the hand gliders going into the concert that was taking place, this big outdoor concert. They knew that well too. They knew exactly what time the concert would be starting. All coordinated. Just like September 11th, it was mastermind, putting it all together, planning it all. This attack was planned. They had help, lots of help. I want you to know something. The people that lived in these particular kibbutzim that took the greatest hit and the most of losses, who were they? Very sweet people, pioneers of Israel, literally people that have lived there generation after generation after generation, going to 1948. And particularly this area, this geography of Israel, these kibbutzim happen to have been mostly very secular kibbutzim. The people that lived there were rather politically very much on the left. It was not these right-wingers, as some may want to think. This wasn't an attack on the zealots. No. These were individuals who set up fundraisers to help the refugees in Gaza because they really believed that there could be peace. And they wanted to show their brothers across the wall that we care about you. And so they would help. They adopted communities in Gaza where they would raise funds to help them and help their families. They fought against the Israeli government to allow more permits so that those in Gaza can come work at their kibbutz. I say this, not, God forbid, in any criticism of them. On the contrary, they really believed it. They really meant it. They truly felt that if they reached out in love to their fellows across the border, there can be coexistence. Jews love peace. Oseh shalom b'mromov. We love peace. We want peace. We desire peace. Some believed it was not possible with people that hate us like this. Some said we can find a way. That debate has been going on since 1948. And every time there's some push for some summit, that debate intensifies. And to the audience that I'm speaking to now, whether you're in the academy, in the guru, or you're online, or you'll be on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you may be listening, that debate continues to go on between us. There are people that believe on the right. There are people that believe on the left. There are people that believe that there's a possible two-state solution. There are many of us that do not believe that's possible. That debate has always gone on, and we can find the time to continue that debate. I bring this up only because the people that was slaughtered by the people they believed they could make peace with. And they weren't just slaughtered. They were tortured. They were burnt alive. Their limbs were cut off while they were alive. Those going in to pick up the remains still need counseling till this very moment because they can't come to grips with what they witnessed, with what they saw. I spoke to one of the Zaka workers. And I'm going to be graphic with you because we have to hear this. We have to know what Israel has faced and is facing. They took a pregnant woman in her 9th month. And while conscious, while alive, they took a knife and they cut out her fetus with her husband watching. And then shot the fetus, and then murdered the parents. Who does this? Who does this? They beheaded babies. They went in one of the kibbutzim knowing where all the children and the infants were, and they cut off heads of babies. Who does this? They murdered children while parents had to watch. They raped daughters and wives while parents and husbands watched. They slaughtered a bunch of innocent people going to a concert, a peace concert, peace-loving people, and just using their machine guns, mowed them down. Good people, innocent people, peace-loving people. As I said, people that created fundraisers to help their fellows over the border. So don't make the mistake of thinking, well, these were zealots. These were people that have gone into their side and done things to them. No, not this time. Those lies have been spread before. Those trying to put some context to this, those lies have been spread. You can't do it this time. There is no context here. There is no context. There is no continuation of the sentence other than call it what it is, evil. You can't continue a sentence and say, but we need to understand. No, there is no we need to understand. End the sentence. Evil. Nazism. Hitler. Eichmann. That's what this is. That's what this was. The UN Secretary General just yesterday said, but we need to understand the context in which this took place. No, we don't. And the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, God bless him, and rightfully so, demanded immediately his resignation. You can't represent the United Nations if you can say such a thing after seeing what Israel saw happen to their own citizens. This was not a war against Israel. This was not a battle for territory. This was war against the Jew. It wasn't about land. It was about that Jews do not have a right to exist on this earth and Jews need to be murdered. This was evil in biblical proportion. This was, as the Torah talked to us about Amalek, about a nation that is bent on evil. And if you don't wipe them out, they will continue to commit these atrocities against your children, against your parents. Who does this? Who goes after bubbies and zaydis? Who takes hostage 85-year-old women? Who does this? No context. We shouldn't allow that sentence to ever continue. We spend time in the south. The first city we stopped in is the city of Ashkelon. Ashkelon, to give you an idea of population, it's the largest city next to Gaza. There's kibbutzim, there's small cities. The largest big city next to Gaza is Ashkelon. It has about 150,000 people living in this city. So it's a decent sized city. Because it's the closest larger city to Gaza, they get the brunt of the missiles. So when they're sending missiles in, Ashkelon gets it. So in the span of a short period of time, on October 7th, they sent 1,200 missiles. 1,200 missiles into the city of Ashkelon. You know, the Golden Dome, the Iron Dome. It's a miracle dome. It saved thousands of lives, continues to save lives this very moment. It intercepted 1,000 of the 1,200. Now you'll say, whoa, those are good numbers. But you know what that means? 200 missiles landed on the city. So 150,000 people, you take the cities, let's say Thousand Oaks, Westlake, Agoura, take those cities. And if I told you that 200 missiles rained down on us in a 24-hour period, tell me what life is like for you. And continues to come every single day. That's what Israel is facing. Now, you may think, well, what kind of missiles can these possibly be? These are just some Hamas terrorists. No, these missiles kill. They're deadly. I met families whose loved ones died from these missiles. People lost homes, cars, livelihoods, all gone. You may have seen that I posted on Facebook. Some woman saw us walking in the street. They don't see too many people walking there, and she just came running at us crying. She's hungry. She has no food. She has no home. She showed us a block away her home, destroyed, just destroyed, crying. Well, each of us, we took out whatever we had money-wise. We gave it to her, help her rebuild, get her food, get her to a shelter. These are our brothers and our sisters. This is not 1940. This is the year 2023. In Eretz Yisrael, in our land. We visited the command center in Ashkelon. Some things they allowed us to take pictures of, some things we were only able to see with ourselves and couldn't record. But they're able to see, they're quite sophisticated where every single missile comes from. They're able to see it coming. They're able to see where it's going. They're able to send the Iron Dome missile to try to intercept it. They're able to know if it was intercepted or not. It's being manned 24 hours by an entire team, watching every single second to protect the people of Ashkelon. We traveled then further. We traveled within 3 kilometers of the Gaza border. That's about 5 minutes away. The city we went to is the city of Sderot. You may have heard the city of Sderot mentioned in the news quite often in the last 3 weeks. Give you some idea, Sderot is a city of 35,000 people. It's very close to the Gaza border where they infiltrated. As I mentioned, the terrorists knew what they were doing. They had details. They knew everything. So Sderot was hit with 500 missiles right when it began. The people of Sderot are used to missiles. They're close to Gaza. They're used to hearing the sirens. This is Simchas Torah in the morning. The sirens go off. Okay, there's a lot of sirens, and it's not stopping, and it's one after the next after the next. Something is strange. Something is not right. Along with the missiles coming in, they sent, I believe the number is about 200 terrorists into the city of Sderot. The people of Sderot, and I met with them and spoke to them, those that are still there. To give you some idea, there were 35,000 there on October 7th in the morning. There's 5,000 there today. 30,000 residents of Sderot have moved to other parts of Israel. There's only 5,000 there now. We met with many of them. They knew when there's a missile attack, if they don't have a good shelter in their home, and some of these communities were built before they started building shelters in every home, so there are public shelters. The best public shelter in the city of Sderot is in a place called the Media Center. It's in the center of town. They built a beautiful media center, almost like a city hall. And the media center is right next to the police station. So the place to go, if you don't have a good bomb shelter, you run to the media center. They knew that because they sent their terrorists first to the media center. They overran the guard, murdered him, murdered everyone that was in the media center at the time that were working there perhaps, and then waited for the knocks on the door for people to come to the media center to seek protection. They, of course, let them in and murdered them right there. They also had a bunch of terrorists take control of the police station. They overwhelmed the guards at the door, and they took the entire police station over. Every police officer on duty that day in Sderot was murdered. Everyone. Where do you think the people of Sderot were running when they heard terrorists have come into their city? They ran to the police station, and they were murdered there. When the Israeli soldiers finally were able to take control of the city, they came into the media center to find bodies and bodies and bodies of our fellow Jews. They showed us a car in the parking lot of the media center. Car is still there. Front seats are soaked in blood. There was a couple that came there to escape the missiles, to get into the media center bomb shelter. They never made it in. They were shot. The front seat of their car. Perhaps the terrorists didn't see, but in the back seat of the car were two infants in car seats. They lived, but they were in car seats. 8 hours later, still sitting in the back seat of a car with their father and mother dead, car filled with blood. Someone sees these two children in the car. This individual runs immediately to the police station to inform them that there's two infants in this car, and he gets killed. Miraculously, these two children lived. They survived. But the brutality is all over the city. It's everywhere. It took 30 hours for the IDF to take control of the police station. 30 hours. That tells you how many terrorists were locked up in there. How many terrorists they brought into the city. They had pickup trucks. They drove through the entire city of Sderot and they shot everyone on the street. Everyone on the street that they saw were shot. You see bullet holes throughout the entire city. This is a city the size of Agura Hills. So I want you to think of Agura Hills, God forbid, being taken over by terrorists. And you're stuck there. You're trapped in your house. You don't know if you're going to live or die because they're everywhere. You have no more police. They're all dead. And even the IDF can't get control of the city because they have every pinpoint of entrance into the city. It finally took the IDF bulldozers. They brought in bulldozers and they just bulldozed the police station right down. And if those of you looked on my Facebook page, you saw, I showed you images of the bulldozers still at work there, clearing the area where the Sderot police station once stood. I mentioned to you that there were 35,000 that lived there, and today there's only 5,000 people. There's not a single store open in Sderot. Chabad is the only organization that's there and is still open. The rabbi and his wife and his son and his wife and a small staff are there 24 hours a day. They've turned their Chabad house into a food pantry. And every one of the 5,000 that's there comes by and gets their food to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's how they're living there. Most of the people in the south and now in the north of Israel, Kiryat Shmona, all the cities near the Lebanese border have been evacuated. So you hear those words. I've always heard these words. They've been evacuated, and you move on. Okay, so they're safe now. Do you understand what this means for a country? Hundreds of thousands moved from their home. So northern Israel is now empty, and southern Israel had to empty. So they're all now taken in. If they have relatives, they're taken in by relatives. What about school for the kids? They don't have the infrastructure right now to figure out school so fast. People that live in the southern area near Gaza have been told to expect not to be able to be back to their homes for at least a minimum of 3 months. A minimum of 3 months. They don't have their clothing. They don't have anything. 3 months. Jobs, well, it depends what they worked in, if they can continue working or not. I'm staying at the Leonardo Plaza Hotel in Jerusalem. This hotel is filled to capacity, not with tourists, but from everyone that lived in Kfar Maiman. Kfar Maiman is a religious kibbutz near Gaza. They have been evacuated and all brought to this hotel, and it's 24 hours a day with kids running around and infants. There's a beauty to it that we're able to take in an entire community and that they're still together. But at the same time, we spend time talking to the families. They're happy to be alive, but their lives have been drastically changed. Now, how did they survive when all the kibbutzim nearby got destroyed? To give you some idea, there's a kibbutz called Kfar Aza, one of the first kibbutzim to be hit. There's 400 people that lived in this kibbutz. 400. Of the 400, 75 were murdered, 50 were taken hostage. Think about that. 30% of everyone in this kibbutz either hostage or murdered. And here's the kibbutz Maiman, and they all survived. So I asked the story, how is it that you guys survived? Did you have a better security system in place? Did you have more security guards than the other kibbutzim? That's not how they survived. When the IDF first heard what was going on, they sent a helicopter, a carrier helicopter that brought a whole team of soldiers to get closer. That helicopter was shot down by the terrorists. Again, they were prepared. Miraculously, those in the helicopter, although it was shot down, survived the crash. They all survived the crash. The crash ended up, the helicopter went down right at the entrance of Kibbutz Maiman. Kibbutz Maiman now had some 30 soldiers with machine guns protecting their kibbutz. That's how they survived, through a helicopter crash. Miracles? Yeah, there were miracles. Heroes, there were many brave people that saved many lives that day. We're always hearing about all those that were injured. We're hearing about the number of deaths, and those numbers are way, way too high. But thousands of lives were saved that day by modern day heroes that put their lives on the line and went running to help. I met some of these people. I met them in hospitals. I met them in homes. This is, and I'll talk more about them soon. This is a country at war. And you feel it. It's a war they did not ask for. It's a war they did not provoke. It's not over land, as I said. It's just about hate, and it's about evil. It's anti-Semitism at its worst. We went from Shiva House to Shiva House. Many from Kfar Aza that I told you lost 70 members of their kibbutz. We went today to the Baruch residents. Baruch residents, they live in what the world calls the West Bank. We call it by its biblical name, Shomron. The mayor of one of the cities in Shomron is Avraham Baruch. His wife is Yurit Baruch. They raised a 22-year-old daughter with a strong passion and love for Israel. She joined the IDF. She was a photographer. She was a poet. And she was engaged to get married. And she heard what was going on. Her father immediately was called up and he went to serve. And she said, Abba, I'm a member of the IDF and I'm going as well. And she immediately said, I'm going to help. She drove from Shomron and she drove to Sderot. As she entered the city, siren went off, missile blast in Sderot. She followed the instructions. When you hear the siren go off, you stop your car, you go out on the sidewalk, you lie down, you cover your head, and you pray. Adi Baruch did not survive the missile attack. The Baruch parents told us today, at first they were worried because there was no answer on the cell phone. They knew there were missile attacks in Sderot, but they believed for sure that their daughter would be okay. But they didn't hear from her. They didn't hear from her. They didn't hear from her. The father just got into a car, went to Sderot to try to find his daughter, and then got the call from the hospital that her daughter was found. His daughter was found, but unfortunately she didn't survive. 1,400 Shiva homes. 1,400 Shiva homes. We only visited a handful, but the memory and the thoughts and the conversations will stay with me forever and ever and ever. People that love their land, that put their lives on the line for the land, that love Israel, that it just the passion for the Jewish people comes out from them when you speak to them, even in their time of sorrow, in their time of sadness. All they can talk about is, we will be strong. Am Yisrael Chai. And we were delivering this message of we're all behind you, and they were giving back this message. Tell the Jews of America, Am Yisrael Chai. We will live. We will survive. We went to numerous hospitals visiting those that are injured. One of the big hospitals we went to is Be'er-Sheva. Be'er-Sheva was a hospital that took in that first day of October the 7th, 700 injured. It's the largest hospital near Gaza, and therefore they were getting the brunt of it. The chief surgeon that we met with there has not yet gone home from October 7th. He's been there nonstop. He takes naps every once in a while in the hospital. He has not seen his wife and children unless they came to visit him in the hospital. He has not left the hospital since 6:30, October 7th. We went room to room visiting the injured. And then today we went to a different hospital, the largest hospital in the Middle East, Sheba Hospital. And they have a special wing, a special place for injured soldiers. This was hard. This was hard stuff. You can't possibly be prepared for this. Going room to room with soldiers that lost legs, that lost arms, burnt over large parts of their body, shrapnel injuries, some screaming in excruciating pain. One room after the next, each telling their story. Many of them just went running when they heard what was going on to see how they can help. Immediately went to the front line. Some took out 20 terrorists single-handedly, paid the price heavily for it, but saved lives. As I mentioned, thousands of lives were saved by brave heroes. We brought them gifts. We sang songs with them. We held their hands. We met with the parents, with the grandparents, with the brothers and the sisters. It was an entire day of raw pain, raw emotion, seeing some of the greatest people I'll ever meet. And again, that same message from them, we will be victorious. Am Yisrael Chai. I met a soldier today that told his story. He was away, close to home, but away from the house when the attack first began. He lived in one of the kibbutzim. He was a soldier himself. His wife and 2 children were in the home. He gets a text from his wife. There's shooting going on outside the house. He immediately makes a dash with his car to get to the home. When he gets to his house, he sees what looked like Israeli soldiers, 20 of them outside his house. At first thought was, they got the call, they're already there, my wife and kids are okay. But something looked odd. Either the uniform wasn't put on correct, or as he said, they weren't wearing the gun correctly. And he realized these were terrorists that had disguised uniforms, whether they took it from the soldiers that they murdered or they had it before. But these were terrorists, 20 of them, by his house, his wife and 2 kids inside the home. His wife texts him, "We're hiding under the bed. Don't come in, they'll shoot you." Now imagine, you're outside the home, your wife and kids are inside, they're hiding. You're outnumbered. He couldn't stop himself. He took his gun out and he started shooting. Took on all of them. They brought in reinforcements. A battle went on. He single-handedly killed about 50 of them. One man, a Rambo, wouldn't stop. His wife and kids were inside. How could he stop? His wife, who, by the way, I'll tell you now, survived with the 2 children, hiding under a bed, said the terrorists were in the bedroom, sitting on the bed. And she had to keep the 2 children holding her hands on their mouths so they shouldn't make a sound while they were sitting on top of the very bed they were hiding under. At some point, as this gunfight continued, they simply set fire to the house. And they escaped. They ran out. The mom and the 2 children now can't breathe as the room fills with smoke. They run out. The husband, father, finally makes it into the house and he can't find his wife and kids. It took 8 hours until he found out that they were hiding now in another house, and they finally came out. He was shot numerous times, but he wouldn't stop. Just a simple room in a hospital, sitting there, hearing a story like this from a regular member of the IDF. Heroes. Heroes. I saw a female soldier. She was shot 12 times. 12 times. It's a young girl, shot 12 times. And she began to tell her story, and she was in a room with fellow soldiers, 8 of them, friends, close friends, buddies. She's the only survivor. 7 of them did not survive, didn't make it. Killed, murdered. Funeral after funeral, and her own injuries, 12 bullets in her body. One room after the next. One room after the next. As I said when I started, I'm trying to put it all together. The feeling, the emotion of seeing this and hearing this and being there at the scene. You know, we were going to the hospital in Beersheba and we heard one of the sirens go off and follow the instructions. You know, you get out of your car and how do you live this way? While I'm sitting here, by the way, you should know, while I'm sitting here doing this Zoom class, I have the app that everyone here in Israel seems to have. It's called the Red Alert app. And I'm able to see missile after missile, where it's taking off, where it's landing. So while we're talking and having a class, Israel's been hit by missile after missile after missile. I grew up with a question. We all grew up with questions. Many questions, right? There's one question that always bothered me. The Holocaust was always on my mind, because I grew up with a father who survived the Holocaust. But I never got to see his parents, I never got to see his brother, I never got to see his sisters. A lone survivor of an entire family. And you grow up with that. Yeah, you'll always have the big God question, where was God? But that's not for today. The question I was always haunted by is, where was American Jewry? How did you let this happen? Now, I know there was no social media, there's no Facebook, you didn't have necessarily news reports. I know all of that, but still, where was American Jewry? Jewish leadership knew what was going on. Many Jews on the street knew what was going on. It just didn't feel that they could mix in. Couldn't pressure FDR. Couldn't lobby the White House because it won't be good for the Jews. Jews were being slaughtered. Jews were being sent to gas chambers. And I often wondered, would it be different today if Jews were facing such hate, such evil, such atrocities? If Jews were facing Nazism today, where would Jewish America be? What would we be doing? We put up bumper stickers that said never again. We have great slogans, never again. There are songs, never again. We all grew up with those words, never again. What does never again mean? Are you going to do something if it does happen again? What will you do? We have to ask ourselves the question, what does never again mean to us? What does it mean? Because since the Holocaust, Jewish babies were not beheaded. Since the Holocaust, Jewish bubbies and zaydis weren't burnt alive. But it happened now, not in ancient books, not a generation or two ago. It happened now, on our watch. Never again is now. The challenge to us is now. Now, as I mentioned last week, there is a big difference between 1940 and right now. And that big difference is we do have a response team. We have Israel. We have an Israeli army. We have a strong Israeli army. We have tanks. We have airplanes. We have ships. We have a navy. We have lots of strong people out there. We have a brave young army. When Israel sent out calls for 300,000 reserves, do you know that 360,000 showed up? Now that number is 400,000 showed up, 100,000 more than were called up. Why? Because they want to serve. And you didn't call me, I want to serve. I was in a different country, I want to serve. That's different today. But the evil, the atrocities, the hate, the anti-Semitism, that's the same. Don't kid yourself. If Hamas could do what Hitler did, they would do it in an instant. If Islamic Jihad can do what Hitler did, they would do it in an instant because the hate is the same. Don't fool yourself that this has anything to do with Israel or land or territory or peace negotiations. It has to do with their hate for the Jew. They want to destroy the Jewish people. You're Jewish, they want to destroy you. What will you do? The mission of today must be to destroy Hamas. Destroy. Whatever the definition of destroy means, that's what it is. It's not to punish Hamas. It's to destroy Hamas, to wipe them off the face of the map. That's the mission statement. That's what the Prime Minister of Israel, the Defense Minister of Israel, the generals of Israel, that's what they said. An atrocity like this calls for their entire complete destruction. Destroy Hamas. Not proportionate, not restrained. And I told you a week ago, and I said this right when this happened, that you will see that within no time you will start hearing the media use these words. Proportionate. What about those living in Gaza that are innocent? What about those without water? And it's shocking how they have already done this. They're already talking about this. Proportionate. There is no proportion when it comes to destroying evil. It means to destroy evil, not proportionately. We're not looking for that number. The moment we kill the same amount they killed for us, okay, we're even, now it's your turn. There should never be another turn. And by the way, destroying Hamas, if you really cared about the Palestinians in Gaza, tell the world, let us destroy Hamas, and they will have normal lives. The reason there is that many refugees living difficult lives is because they are also under the evil atrocities of Hamas. They kill their own people the same way. They are corrupt. They take the money that the world pours in there, they use it for themselves. You care about the refugees in Gaza? Take them in. Take them in. The war in Ukraine and Russia, millions of people were taken in by other European countries. Poland took in millions of Ukrainians. When the Polish foreign minister was asked last week, and how many Palestinian refugees are you willing to take in? He proudly said 0, none. Why? There's 23 Arab countries there. Not one has offered to take a single one in. You care that much, media? Take them in. Challenge the Arab countries to take in their own refugees. But no one will. It would rather than be human shields. They want that number to go up. Oh, how they wish there was an Israel missile that destroyed that hospital. As it turns out, it was their own missile. As it turns out, it didn't hit the hospital, it hit a parking lot. As it turned out, it wasn't 500 people, it was 20 people. But the world loved to be able to buy the blood libel so quickly. And yes, an attack will eventually cost lives. And yes, a hospital will be hit, a school will be hit, a kindergarten will be hit. But that blood is on Hamas, not on Israel. What can we do? What does never again mean? Stand strong behind Israel. Get comfortable with the word destroy Hamas. No matter what will come your way in the media, get comfortable with the fact that Israel must. It has no choice. There is no diplomacy out of this. There's no peace talks out of this. There's no Secretary of State meetings. There's no summits. There's no Camp Davids. It doesn't work when it comes to evil. Evil must be destroyed. Otherwise, if you find some quote unquote peaceful ceasefire out of this, this will happen again. And God forbid, again and again. And no one should ever, ever have to face such evil again. No one in the world, no one in Israel. And when it raises its ugly head, the world must shut it down. And if the world won't shut it down, at least, at minimum, let Israel do what Israel needs to do. So I prepare you for what you're going to hear. You're going to continue hearing the drumbeats. Ceasefire talks must go on. And Egypt and Jordan is calling for the United States to demand that Israel stop. And China is saying this, and Russia is saying this. And the United Nations will pass resolution after resolution. Close your ears to it. If you have the courage to speak up against it, do so. But don't be intimidated. Don't be apologetic. Let Israel do what Israel needs to do. And I'll close with this part of my tour. The military bases, visiting the soldiers. That's a totally different emotion, an entirely different emotion. These kids, they are strong, mentally, emotionally, physically. They are ready. You feel it, you sense it. They are resolute, they are courageous, they are well-trained, and they know what they're fighting for. They're fighting for goodness. When they scream, Am Yisrael Chai, they know what it means. Visiting and dancing with these soldiers, it felt literally like being together with the Maccabees from the story of Hanukkah, the modern-day Maccabees. You felt it. You felt their strength within them. They knew that they're carrying on their shoulders, not just fighting for their mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers and brothers and sisters and children that live today in Israel. They know that they're putting their lives on to fight for the Jewish people and to fight for Jewish history. They know that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, and Rivka, and Rachel, and Leah, and Moses, and Aaron, and King David, and King Solomon, they're all with them. They know what they're fighting for, and they know that they represent goodness, and they know that they represent the fight against evil. Make no mistake about this. The very survival of our people and the very survival of Israel is at stake today. Because if Israel shows weakness, if Israel shows that you can do this to Jews and still stay in power and still taunt us and still send your missiles in, and all of our enemies all over the world will know that we are weak, and they will smell that weakness. And then our existence and our survival is at stake. Israel is left with no choice today, no choice, but to do what they set out to do. And that's to destroy the enemy so that we live up to our promise to our parents' generation. Never again. Never, ever, ever again. It must be real. We have to get behind it mentally, emotionally, in any way possible, in any way that we can do. When I come back, I'll be back Friday morning, hopefully, next week. I want to talk also a little bit next week about the families I met whose loved ones are being kept hostage. And hopefully by then, there'll be miracles that will take place and they'll be released and they'll all find their way home. But I met with some of these families, and the anguish is not something that we can even begin to comprehend. How every minute is torture for them, thinking about how their daughter is, how their son is, how their mother is, how their father is, how their brother is, how their sister is. And I think there is something that we can do to help. And I'll talk more about some of the ideas that I spoke with them about and spoke to those leading the campaign to bring the hostages home. Some ideas that are being floated around that I think we can get the American Jewish community involved in, try to get our Congress people involved in as well. So there's more to talk about. I encourage everyone listening, get involved in every way any possible way you can. Publicly show your support for Israel in any type of way that you can. In the hospital today, some woman showed me that she got this little WhatsApp video from someone that lives in Arizona. And look, the Jews in Arizona, they came together and they were driving with their cars and they were waving Israeli flags. You know what that told me? It means something. It means something to them. Look, the Jews in Arizona are there supporting us. They need to know that every Jewish community in the United States are taking time off, going to these rallies, standing on street corners, protesting, whether it's on college campus, on the street corners of Agora Hills, or any place that you are. Show them that support in a public way. Call your government officials. If we feel, and right now the President of the United States has made some beautiful statements in support of Israel. So we thank him for that. We thank the Secretary of State for that. But if we get the sense that in any type of way they're trying to handcuff Israel's hands to slow down the response in any type of way, or to stop them short of their goal, what they have to do, we have to be prepared to speak up loud, clear, and as a united force. Let Israel do what it must do. Never again means never again. I thank you all for joining me today, whether in Gura or on Zoom or any other social media way that you're listening to this. Let us hope and pray indeed, first, that all those that are wounded have a refuah shalema. Let's hope and pray that all those that are held hostage miraculously find their way home. Let's hope and pray that there's no injuries from any of these incoming missiles that take place literally every minute over here. Let's hope and pray that God will protect the proud, strong members of Tzahal, the men and women of the Israeli Defense Force. And whatever mission that they're given, they should be successful because angels should be accompanying them. God Almighty himself should come down and pave the way for open and revealed miracles, for us to see miracles of biblical character, biblical ways. And we saw miracles back then. We should see Hanukkah miracles today. We should see miracles like the Jews saw in Egypt today. We should see all of these miracles with our own eyes. The world will know that Eretz Yisrael, this is the land that God has promised to the Jewish people, that God has gifted to the Jewish people, to us as a chosen people in a chosen land. Am Yisrael Chai. Have a good day, everybody. Let's keep praying. Let's keep davening. Let's keep united. Men, go out there, put on tefillin. If you didn't do so yet today, still time today, put on tefillin. Women, make sure you light the Shabbos candles. Everyone give a little extra charity every single day. And keep in mind, this is giving an extra good deed to help the soldiers on the front line. And let's stay united. Am Yisrael Chai.